Hello guys, and welcome to yet another tutorial of mine. And if you have watched my first tutorial, it was about the Ardennes Forest Road, and the second was about painting figures, and then I had one about diode setup and stuff like that. Today we will look at something a bit more applicable, or a bit more urging. Well, if there's one thing that a lot of modelers, especially young and young modelers and guys that are new to the hobby, it's applying mud to AFVs. And I've struggled with that before too, and then especially in the beginning, I was very wary of how to do it. I tried different products, pre-mixed products and stuff like that, and I wasn't really happy with the way the results looked. So in talking to other guys within the hobby and looking at the way they used different kind of products to do it, I have adapted a couple of ideas from different people to make my, well, it's not my own way of applying mud, it's just one way of applying mud that's pretty prevalent out there. And I will show you guys how I do it. I will show you guys two different kinds of style I do. You can either do it colored or you paint it once it's on the model. Whatever you think is the better way of doing it, and I'll briefly talk about both ways, and then I'll put it on a vehicle to show you guys how to apply it. So let me move the camera and we'll look first at the materials that are necessary for doing mud. Like I said, let us first look at the materials and tools we need for making mud. Well, first off, you need brushes. It's better to use old brushes. You need a bowl or something similar. You can use old yogurt cups, whatever you want to, where you can mix your mud mix in. And then you need water. This is just tap water. By the way, if you use Ultimate Modeling thinner or cleaner, the bottles are awesome if they are empty, just to store water in. Really good. You need wood glue, whatever fits your need here. White glue, wood glue, whatever. You need plaster of Paris. And if you want to color it, you need paints. Always remember though, when you color your mud, or pigments, paints or pigments, always remember, when you color your mud, before you apply it, it will lighten up significantly if you use pigments or acrylic colors. If you want to use enamel colors or pre-mixed enamel paint mixes, always remember, you cannot use water. The first thing you always need to make up your mind about is, do you want wet mud or dry mud? If you want wet mud and you want it colored, you might want to add a bit of gloss color and a darker color for that. If you want dry mud, you do not use the gloss. You might even add a bit of matte varnish. So I will now try and make a bit of wet mud, so stay with me here as I'll get everything ready and then we can start mixing. Alright, as you can see, I've got three acrylic colors here. One is the gloss, like I said, for the wet mud, and I've got earth color and dark earth from Revell. I will mix them to create a very brownish kind of tone. Well, we start out by using our plaster of Paris. You always have to decide how much mud do I actually want to use for my my vehicle. On a normal sized vehicle like a tank, you want to make enough for both the sides, both sponsons, as well as the back and the tracks. So let me just plaster of Paris can be a bitch. but that should be enough. Oh, see, you spread it all over your bench. You might want to. I see that might just be enough plaster of Paris. In the next step, we add water. And see where that takes us. That might have been too much water. Yes, it was. What you might want to do, in some cases, is add sand to this mix in order to get a bit more richness and a bit more texture to your mud. If you realize it's too thin, just add a bit more plaster of Paris and mix it until you get like a very that's the consistency you want to have. Like it's a bit like toothpaste. The consistency of toothpaste is a good consistency. So in the next step, we will add white glue, which will help with the adhesion of our mud mix to the tank. Don't want to overdo it because we might need to add water after adding the white glue because it thickens our mud a bit. Although this looks really good. Like I said, toothpastey consistency is what we're looking for. All right, now that we've got that done, next step will be adding the paint or pigment, whatever you like. I'm using acrylic paint now. All right, shake it before using. Shake it. And you add paint until you achieve the desired results. Always have a kitchen towel or whatever you use handy. Not like I right now. I have it under my table here. So in case you spill anything, which was likely to happen. That looks stars. Let's go with this color instead, which already is a glossy color, so that might allow me to reduce the amount of gloss I need. Just add a couple of drops. Again, we might realize that this will wetten up our mix too much, in which case, or make it too liquidy, in which case we can just add a bit more plaster of Paris. And like I said, the addition of sand and gravel will only make it more structural. Alright, you can see this nice muddy paste. Exactly how we want it, or I want it for this demonstration. You might realize this brush is too big, and you can still wash the brush in water, remove the It is water. I wasn't sure. Might have been Revell airbrush cleaner. But it smells like water, I hope. Alright, now that we have mixed our mud, we can now use a smaller brush, like this one, to apply it to our tank. And as you might see, I already have a layer of mud on this tank. Let me set up everything, get everything out of the way so I can show you guys better how to apply the mud. I'll be back in a second. Alright guys, let me start applying the mud. We just use our brush and dip it in the paint, and then, and I'll try to show you guys, we just dip it in the areas where we think there will be mud. Three-dimensional, nice mud. And it helps to add the mud in multiple layers to build it up and to make it look really, really muddy, thicky, sticky, if you want that to be the result you strive for. On the first layer of mud I use different colors, so that should help with adding tonal variation, which you get in mud quite frequently. You do not want to overdo it, especially if you did a lot of work on painting and modifying your vehicle underneath. If you want it to be muddy as hell, of course, you can go all out with the mud. And as you can see here, by the amount of mud I still have left in my bowl, I have made enough mud to both cover the Stug as well as the road wheels as well as the tracks. Let me remind you though that especially with road wheels and tracks, there's a lot of wear that would reduce the amount of mud that gets on there. You do not want to flood everything in mud. Always have another brush handy if you get it. If you get the mud into areas where you don't want it to be, then you can take it off with the other brush. Just remember to clean it afterwards too. And if we take this off, the rest that we have in areas we don't want it, it will give a nice stain on those areas later on. I forgot to add the gloss, but that's not a problem. I will tell you guys how you can add gloss at a later stage. You always want to try and have certain areas, even outside of the running gear, where there might be a lot of earth that might be flipped up by the running gear. And as you can see, hopefully, if the light picks it out, I'm going to move the light here. As you can see down there, we have a very nice and smooth three-dimensional effect of mud on the tank now, on both sides, as well as in the back. I will set this to the side, we'll have it dry, and then we'll come back and I'll show you guys how it looks once it's dry. Alright guys, I made a decision on how to blend my mud together, and I'll be using this. This is Mixed Neutral Wash. It's a brownish wash color that I used on rather rusty whitewashed vehicles, especially because it gives this rusty brownish look, and I already did it on this side. It's currently drying, so we'll see how that looks in the end. I hope it does what it does. Now let me just use my brush, and we start on the top, which is where we want the mud to be wet. That's why we have most of the darker colors on top, and we try to be as deliberate as possible, not create any kind of reoccurring patterns. Just try to wetten everything. I can even do smaller streaks here, where we want it to look as if the wetness is present even in the lower levels, and we can use the fact that the plaster, although dry, soaks up the wash. And I hope you can see this. I'm not sure though. Now we have this darkening here from the top down on this side. We have the darker area up top and the lighter area down. I hope it will do what I want it to do. If not, I will probably have to go over it again with a similar product. But yeah, that's where I am right now, trying to blend them together with this wash. In a final step, once everything is dry, we will see how it looks, and we'll add a couple of oil leaks, wet stains, grease stains to the mud, and once that's dry, I'll come back and I'll show you guys how I do that. So see you in a second. Alright guys, we're in the home stretch now on the mud. I did something off camera here. I added gloss coat, Revell gloss, to the areas that I used the darker mud color on to create a wet look. What we now need to do is we need some staining, some from the roll wheel attachments, some oil stains from the bump stops and that kind of stuff. And I'm using MIG Productions dark wash for that, a very fine brush. And then you know the areas like the return roller attachment points, the bump stops, and the and around the suspension, the swing arms here. And you just take the dark wash, you just make like small streaks in the, just to simulate some oil that has leaked. In the mud. Just so you know guys, I will put pictures of the finished results in the end of this video in a little slideshow. So you will be able to see what I mean with those streaks and stuff. Alright, now that that's done, the mud's done. We have used very, very simple, cheap techniques and cheap materials to create, in my opinion, very, very convincing mud effect on the hull. Let me see if I can, yeah, there you go. As you can see, we have the darker colors on top, right here, the darker mud on the top. We have the lighter mud down there, and we have some streaks. The mud is nicely three-dimensional. We have areas where it is thicker, areas where it's thinner. It has a muddy texture, and it looks good, I think. Like I said, what you will now be seeing is a slideshow of some pictures of the finished mud texture, and I hope it was helpful for you if you want to make easy and quick mud. And leave suggestions and comments, and if you guys want to see something else, let me know. This is Hot Modeling. Always remember, the force with you. See you guys around next time. Bye for now. And don't turn off now. Slideshow.